Hello, my name is Kevin McGlumphy with Associated Asphalt Partners, where I'm the Director of Materials and Research. I'll be speaking today on behalf of the Asphalt Emulsion Manufacturers Association, where I serve as the ITC Emulsion Technology Chair. Talk today will be about the AASHTO Emulsion Expert Task Group Chip and Fog Seal Best Practices Trial. The AASHTO Emulsion Expert Task Group formed a committee to help agencies write specs, provide best practices, and provide training guidance to the agencies as they roll out new products. The first three that we tackled was microsurfacing, chip seals, and fog seals. The agencies have volunteered projects to help with implementation of this program, and this one was done in Michigan with the help of Russ Milan, who is with Michigan Paving and Materials, and we did a chip seal followed by a fog seal to validate the best practices of both applications. The project was Inwood Drive in Coopersville, Michigan. It's an Ottawa County Road Commission project, so it's a local government agency. The emulsion and lab services were supplied by Michigan Paving and Materials Company out of Alma, Michigan. We used a CRS-2M for the Michigan spec lane, which used Michigan DOT's chip seal spec that's already in place. We use CRS-2L in the AASHTO spec lane, which is the proposed program specification for best practices. We also used a local blast furnace slag that was acceptable for the project. Inwood Drive is a rural county primary road with a ADT of 100 to 200. It's approximately 1 mile section that was done between 48th Avenue and 40th Avenue, totaling 12,320 square yards. 5 days prior to the trial, minor crack sealing was completed. There was very low crack sealing, as most of the cracks were at the centerline joint, and not very many were throughout the driving lanes. This section of roadway had received a 2-course 3-inch overlay in 2017. And the agency recently rated the sections with Pacers with a rating of 7, and the roadresource.org program offered by AEMA and PPRA gave a number of 85. And that just means it was a good preservation candidate and wasn't too far gone to treat as a preservation candidate. Within this project, we had 2 pre-con meetings. One was in an office setting with the project managers and county officials, and the other one was on site with the project manager and the crew foreman. The application rate targets were 0.4 gallons per square yard of emulsion and 18 pounds per square yard of the blast furnace slag cover aggregate. The fog seal was then applied at 0.1 gallons per square yard, and all that was calculated based on the best practices manual. We also calibrated the chip spreader at the staging area to ensure that the local aggregate weight didn't mess with the drop rate of the spreader. And the distributor was checked at 1,000 and 2,500 feet during the first pass of the westbound lane. And the checks confirmed that the calibration was in sync and that we were absolutely shooting 0.4 gallons per square yard. The fog seal was also applied 45 minutes after the curing of the chip seal. This slide just shows you the specification targets. If you look at the top right there, it's the Michigan westbound lane. And then you got the AASHTO eastbound lane emulsion spec underneath that. Those are standard Michigan DOT specs and standard AASHTO specs for the chip seal emulsion that was used. The aggregate covered is a blast furnace slag Michigan DOT spec that also met an AASHTO ETF Type B gradation specification, and also met all the aggregate property tests for durability and wear targeted by both Michigan and AASHTO. The next slide here is a distributor sample that was taken from the Michigan lane, which was the first lane we did. We did not take multiple distributor samples because the emulsion was all from the same batch. We performed quality control and compared those to the AASHTO spec and the Michigan spec. And as you can see here, all materials are within spec, or the material was within spec. We then looked at the construction process and made sure that we had good application process. The contractor had 2 rollers on site. They were staggered to provide full lane width rolling with 2 passes on every square yard. The rollers were Bomag 6-ton pneumatics, which is what the best practices recommend. That was followed by a broom that ran 1 hour after the cure of the chip seal. We saw very little chip loss on a lot of bedment of the chips. And things, as you can see to the right there, turned out pretty good. Weather conditions, they were ranging from 62 to 94 degrees from morning to afternoon. The roadbed temperatures were somewhere between 72 and 110. Humidity fluctuated a good bit throughout the project from 38 to 73%. And with all that, we still had good, even curing, and we kept the process within an hour sweep. We did have rain overnight after the project was placed with no runoff, which shows that the emulsion broke, cured, and set up as needed. So in conclusion, the trial went very well, showed great application of chip and fog seal. Michigan specs were met and exceeded the AASHTO ETF chip seal material specifications. So we have plenty of study available for the DOT and local agencies. Michigan has very reputable contractors, so that met and exceeded best practices of the construction guidelines, so that the DOT and agencies got a good look at what that should look like. And most of the DOTs and local agencies are already using a specification that meets the standard criteria. So it was a good project to kick off with. We do feel it's important to take time to document and ensure that all the material and construction guideline specifications were realized, and documentation provides an opportunity for other agencies to learn from this. And then we can have implementation throughout other counties in Michigan and in sister states that are close by Michigan and the same user-producer group areas. The project was revisited right prior to this presentation, and the project's performing very well. The fog seal color remains. These are 2 pictures of what they look like. They are about a year old right now. There is some minor aggregate loss and some tight turns, and there are also a few areas where maybe some shade and lack of rolling created some edge line chipstone loss. But other than that, the project's performing great. The DOT's happy with it, and we were able to validate that the chip seal and a fog seal application is a good process to use for pavement preservation. On top of that, there are several other projects in place, and this is an application that is used regularly in most of the states in the U.S., so it's high volume for us, for the producers over here, and the contractors do very good work as far as keeping that at the front of the DOT, county, and city government mindset. With that, I'd like to say thank you, and I would be willing to take any questions, comments, or ways to improve the presentation in the future. And thank you for allowing me to present at the IBEF conference and annual seminar.